Hello everyone, and welcome to Lancelot's Nerd Corner, where I'm proud to present another 6-scale figure review. Today, we'll be taking a look at Tommy Shelby by Big Chief Studios, and I'm really glad to be giving you my honest and detailed account of the figure. Let's start with what is probably the main draw for this figure, the Cillian Murphy head sculpt, which I really hate to say is quite disappointing, and looks like a downgrade from the prototype images. The likeness is somewhat there, but the sculpt work isn't all that great, with the main culprits being the back of the jaw and temples, which I think are too wide and make the whole head sculpt look bloated. Cillian Murphy's face definitely is square, with a very defined jawline, but it's much slimmer than what is translated on this figure. And the nose is also too big and pointed by comparison. Additionally, the eyes should have been bigger, as they are a very prominent feature in Cillian's face, especially with those piercing blue irises. Yet, what we see on this figure is more of a sleepy deer in headlights look, which is the complete opposite of the stone cold killer look of Tommy Shelby. The lack of an overall glossy finish also makes it look like an early Hot Toys figure, and I mean early, like 2011-2012. The paint app is decent, but it still looks quite soft and not very lifelike. While the prototype images show detailed skin texturing, beard stubble, freckles, and pockmarks, the final product retains very few of those features. The only thing truly reminiscent of the prototype and Cillian's likeness are the nasolabial wrinkles. However, even those are still sculpted too deep, making him look much older than he actually is. The hair is the only truly great aspect of the head sculpt, as it's sculpted well with a good amount of layers and matches the haircut from the show. It even has that visible separation of the undercut from the sides, which is mainly due to the fact that the hair is actually swappable with a sculpted cap using magnets. This is definitely a cool feature, but unfortunately not enough to make up for the other issues. Personally, I prefer him with the cap, as it's a more iconic look, but also because it hides more of the flaws. From afar and from certain angles, the head sculpt can look good, but I personally think it still falls short in several areas, with only a few positives. I would say we're through the worst of it now, so let's move on to the figure itself. The body feels lightweight, much lighter than a standard Hot Toys body, and a lot of the figure's weight actually feels like it's from the layered fabrics. If you'd like to know specifics, Big Chief Studios used an Anatomix male body, according to their accessory list. The joints in general are stiff and sturdy, but the legs are a bit too skinny to hold up the figure properly. It definitely can still stand up on its own, it just feels a bit risky. Moving on to the outfit, at first glance it definitely carries a strong presence, but upon closer inspection, some problems start to become apparent. The very first layer is a pale blue dress shirt with a white collar and cuffs. They even made white suspenders that attach to the trousers, and I do have to praise the effort that went into that. Although the fabric of the shirt is quite thin, the cuffs aren't wide enough to slip over the hand. This causes the sleeves to bunch up and create unnecessary thickness, which is a problem especially when it's the very first layer. As you've probably already noticed, around the collar is a brown patterned tie. The necktie tail is actually so long that it tucks under the trousers, which is probably meant to keep the tie from moving around, although you may still have to adjust the tie. Over the shirt is a gray tweed waistcoat with a chevron pattern, but judging by the accessory list, the tweed effect means it's not actually made out of tweed. It's most likely made out of cotton and just meant to look like tweed, which is also true for the jacket and trousers. The back is black and has an adjuster belt that is actually slightly functional. And the front has nice details, such as black buttons, pocket linings, and what's meant to look like a gold pocket watch. It is just made of plastic, but it would have been really cool if it was die cast. And the waistcoat is velcroed together and can easily be opened and closed. Over the waistcoat is a black shoulder holster made of pleather and is actually functional. Although the straps are very thin and flimsy, so they don't sit tight on the body. Also, keep in mind that storing the pistol in the holster adds more thickness to the body. This is important because the suit jacket already looks puffy, and adding more thickness underneath worsens the issue. The shoulders also look too wide, and the collar and lapels don't sit flush. You can pull it down to make it tighter on the body, but it only helps a little. That being said, the jacket itself is designed nicely with wide peaked lapels, 2 buttons, and 2 big pockets. The seam lines are exactly where they would be on a real suit jacket, and overall just looks great. I just wish it was tailored tighter. The trousers thankfully do not have these problems, as they are tailored really well. They aren't too wide or too skinny, and they taper off at the perfect length. The pockets are also functional, with enough space to fit some of the hands. Speaking of hands, there are 10 in total, 6 bare hands and 4 gloved hands. But out of the 10, there's only 1 proper pair, the pistol holding hands. The rest are individual, including 1 open palm, 1 tumbler holding, 1 cigarette case holding, 1 cigarette holding, 2 submachine gun holding, and 2 gesturing hands. The bare hands are soft and rubbery, which allows ease of use for the accessories. They also have a good paint application with visible skin texturing and subtle hints of veins. The gloved hands are actually slightly larger than the bare hands, which shows great attention to detail. They're all painted black with sculpted stitching and unique folds according to each gesture. However, with so many individual hands, it is a bit difficult to distinguish each gesture. Moving on to the boots, they're black Oxfords with a clean paint job and not much weathering. The sculpted details are nicely done, namely the stitching, laces, and quarter. It even has sculpted creasing and folds, with some quite large and some more subtle. However, the biggest downside is that they're not split cut, which makes posing the figure more difficult. The final piece of the outfit is the sexy black overcoat. Almost the entirety of the inside is made of a silk-like fabric, which is red and shimmery to imitate a satin look. There are some nice details on the outer of the coat, such as 3 buttons, an asymmetric pattern of large pockets, wide lapels, and a black velvet collar. However, in terms of the fit, the overcoat makes the figure silhouette too puffy, with the shoulders and traps looking so big that they make the head sculpt look disproportionate. Compared to the supreme tailoring of the show, you can see just what I mean when I say the fabrics and layers don't sit flat on the body. Moreover, the 3 layers of sleeves, the shirt, the jacket, and now the coat, slightly restrict articulation, as they bunch up when bending the elbow. Although, while you can't fully take advantage of the double-jointed elbows, I'd say the articulation is still good enough. Overall, the tailoring is decent, but the more layers you put on, the worse the fit and silhouette of the figure looks. However, I do appreciate the effort that went into accurately creating a full 3-piece suit, plus an overcoat, that can be posed in several different stages of the outfit, which is its greatest strength. The cool details and overall presence do help the figure stand out, as long as you don't stare too long at the flaws. Now that we've covered the entire figure, let's take a look at some comparisons. I want to bring in another suited up gentleman to compare, so here's the Tuxedo Joker from Suicide Squad by Hot Toys. You'll immediately notice that he comes in shorter than Tommy, and his outfit is tailored much tighter, despite also having 3 layers. However, unlike with Tommy, you would never want to remove the jacket on the Tuxedo Joker, which is an advantage of the Birmingham Gangster's outfit, as mentioned before. And to provide a slight contrast in outfits, here's John Blake by Hot Toys, which expectedly also comes in shorter. The jacket on John Blake is removable, and it also looks a bit puffy, but that's most likely because of the style of the GCPD puffer jacket. You can also see quite a difference in the quality of the Sculpt and Paint app of the head sculpts between these two figures. Now that we've covered the entire figure and taken a look at some comparisons, let's go over all the accessories the figure comes with. The figure comes with the 10 hands we already covered, as well as a display base, 2 newsboy caps, 1 submachine gun, 1 .45 semi-automatic pistol, 1 bottle of Shelby gin, 1 whiskey tumbler, 1 pair of glasses, 1 pocket watch, 2 cigarette cases, 1 cigarette lighter, and 3 cigarettes. The display base is quite simply a small triangular black base which uses a crotch grabber. The newsboy caps feature 1 fabric and 1 sculpted cap. The fabric cap is made of the same material as the suit, but much thinner, and has the same color and pattern. It's not really meant to be placed on the head, but rather to be used in hand, whereas the sculpted cap has a magnetic attachment specifically for the head. It has great paint application with a very weathered finish, and is my preferred display option. The submachine gun is quite an impressive piece, with nicely sculpted details that are accurate to the real-life MP34. The metallic parts are painted with a slight shimmer, and I especially love the paint application of the wood grain. However, it lacks a coat of weathering that would truly bring it to life, and it is just made of plastic. The pistol has a very similar story, with overall great details and paint application, especially on the textured handle, but the lack of weathering makes it look a bit toyetic. The bottle of Shelby gin is made entirely of clear plastic with a yellowish tint. It has a paper sticker with Shelby gin branding in front, which is very screen accurate. The tumbler with whiskey is a great piece for iconic display or pose options. It's made of hard plastic and has great sculpted patterns around the whole tumbler. However, it seems to have a frosted finish, which is not screen accurate, as Tommy's tumblers are clear glass. The glasses, or maybe spectacles for the time, is a small accessory that makes a big difference in achieving a screen accurate look from later seasons. They are quite thin and flimsy though, so be careful when handling them, and make sure not to scratch the paint on the face when putting them on. The pocket watch is another tiny little accessory and is painted shimmery gold. There's a bit of clear plastic in the middle that reveals the watch face inside, which I think is a really cool detail. The cigarette cases, like the newsboy caps, come in 2 different variations, one closed and one opened. The closed case has a ton of weathering all over, giving it a really worn look. However, I do think it may be a bit too weathered, especially when compared to the open case, which to me has a more appropriate amount of weathering and reveals 4 cigarettes sculpted inside. The cigarette lighter is meant to look like a Ronson standard lighter, which was present in earlier seasons, but the overall look of the figure is from later seasons. So while it is a screen-accurate accessory, there's a bit of inconsistency with the season-specific look. It is also sculpted finely and accurately with a decent paint job to match. Lastly, the cigarettes were an almost necessary inclusion, considering Cillian Murphy reportedly smoked around 3,000 cigarettes for one season alone. All 3 cigarettes have an impressive amount of detail given how small they are, with 2 of them having great paint detail on the tips, resembling ash and blackened burn marks, and the third one having a smoke effect, which may look a bit toyetic, but definitely enhances the figure's presence from afar. To finish up, let's take a look at the decent articulation of the figure. I do want to note that I'll be demonstrating the figure's articulation with the full outfit on, so you may get better articulation without the coat or suit jacket. Starting with the head, which is fixed to the neck, it can slightly tilt up, with lots of room to tilt down, can barely tilt side to side, and with lots of room to swivel side to side. The arms have a good amount of bicep swivel, can raise laterally to around 80 degrees, can swing forward and backward to around 90, and the double jointed elbows can bend past 90 degrees. The torso has lots of room to crunch forward, but barely any extension backward. The legs have a good amount of thigh swivel, can raise laterally to just about 90 degrees. They can swing forward to around 80 degrees, but can only swing backward to 20. And the knees are able to bend past 90 degrees. Lastly, the ankle can only swivel side to side. While I was initially very disappointed in this figure, upon closer inspection, I've been able to find some aspects that I do appreciate. However, I don't think that excuses or cancels out the issues of the figure. It's a trade-off that you just have to live with. The head sculpt is passable, and the tailoring is decent at best. That being said, I do love that you can pose this figure in different stages of dress, and I think the full outfit captures the overall look of the iconic character well enough. Most of the accessories are also done well, but a lack of proper hand pairs means you can't take full advantage of all the accessories on offer. In the end, I would say this figure is good enough for me, a die-hard fan of Peaky Blinders and the character of Tommy Shelby. So whether or not you can overlook some of the flaws in this figure comes down to your love for the character. Thank you so much for watching. If you found this review helpful, feel free to like and subscribe. I hope you have a great day, and I will see you in the next video.